Hey, what's good, everybody? We got an absolute banger for you today, so you want to definitely make it all the way to the end. These mysterious videos, don't believe everything you hear or see on this video. It is strictly for entertainment purposes only. Do your own research on everything. They are just theories, not facts. With that being said, you already know the vibes. Let's dive in!
And what I learned was pretty frightening. Every one of those animals and every one of the people who died of natural causes died of a nutritional deficiency disease. A human being has the genetic capacity, the capability of living healthfully to be 120 to 140, and I'm going to prove that to you in a second.
This doctor who studied human longevity seems to think that we can live a lot longer than what we've been told, and he has the proof to back it up.
Grew up on a farm, a beef farm in Missouri, about 80 miles west of St. Louis. And like everybody else that raises livestock, we raise a lot of our own feed, corn and soybeans and hay. And we grind this up into a flour, and we'd add vitamins and minerals and trace minerals to this. We'd make pellets or cake out of it and feed those calves for about 6 to 9 months before we'd ship them off. And the thing that fascinated me as a teenager was the fact that we ate out of those very same fields. We had a garden at the end of the field where we grew peas and beans and squash and peppers and whatnot. We wanted to live to be 100 with no aches and pains, and we didn't do the same thing for ourselves that we did for those calves. And as a teenager, this was very fascinating for me. And I always used to ask my dad, I'd say, "Hey, Pops, how come we go to all that trouble for those calves? We grind up their feed, add vitamins and minerals and trace minerals, and feed them for 6 to 9 months, knock them in the head and eat them. And we, out of those very same fields, don't do that for ourselves." Of course, being a Missouri farmer, he'd give me a lot of Missouri farm wisdom. He'd say things like, "Shut up, boy." Don't ask complicated questions. So I was glad when I got rid of that farm exercise and went to the University of Missouri and got into ag school. My major was in animal husbandry and nutrition. My minor was in field crops and soils. As a veterinary student, what I learned was the reason we put vitamins and minerals and trace minerals into animal feeds is because we don't have insurance for them. We don't have Blue Cross, Blue Shield, major medical hospitalization. We don't have Medicare, Medicaid, or a Hillary to watch out for them. And as a result, if we were to use a human healthcare type of system for livestock, it'd be a real sticker shock for most people. Because of the veterinary care, the hamburger would cost $275 a pound, and boneless, skinless chicken breast would be $450 a pound. The National Institutes of Health had given him $7.5 million to study pollution in the mid-'60s. This is when we first recognized that there was pollution in our air and our water and our food, and nobody quite knew what that meant over a long period of time. I had to do autopsies of animals that died of natural causes in the big zoos around the United States. And I was to look for a species of animals that was ultra-sensitive to pollution. And we were going to use that species of animals much like the old coal miners used to use a canary. You know, they take the canary down the mine, and the canary would act as an early warning system if methane gas or carbon monoxide would leak out into the mine. We're going to take these animals and put them in little strategic spots all around the world and pay attention to them. And if they started dying, we knew we were in danger. We'll make a long story short. After some 12 years working at the St. Louis Zoo and the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, the Bronx Zoo in New York, the National Zoo in D.C., the L.A. Zoo, and many other big ones throughout the United States, I'd done some 17,500 autopsies in over 454 species of animals, plus 3,000 human beings who lived in close proximity to the zoos for a comparison. And what I learned was pretty frightening. Every one of those animals and every one of the people who died of natural causes died of a nutritional deficiency disease. And I couldn't get anybody excited about those findings because we had just put men on the moon. We had a high-tech Cold War going on with the Soviets. And so talking about nutritional deficiency diseases 30, 35 years ago in America was pretty low on everybody's totem pole. But I knew it was important, so I got frustrated enough. I went back to school for 4 years up in Portland, Oregon, became a physician, and I practiced for 12 years in a general family practice. A human being has the genetic capacity, the capability of living healthfully to be 120 to 140, and I'm going to prove that to you in a second. When the World Health Organization kind of looked at the top 32 industrialized nations on Earth and said, how long do these people live? Who lives the longest? We ranked 17th in longevity. There's actually 16 other countries whose peoples who live longer than we did. These are industrialized nations now. Then we rank 19 in healthfulness. It means there was 18 other countries whose peoples live longer than we do before they develop diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, osteoporosis, and so forth. We rank 23rd in live births and first-year survivability of our... Now, just very briefly, these cultures include the mountain tribes of Tibetans, and these people were made famous in 1933 at the death of a fellow by the name of Wu Li. And he was born in 1677. And if you're quick with numbers, you'll notice that he died at age 256. And when he was 106, the Chinese imperial government began publishing his birth dates and birthday parties every year for 150 years. And when he died, his obituary was in every newspaper in the world because he'd been tracked for many, many years and everybody knew him. And a year after he died, a Pulitzer Prize-winning book was published for which his life was the inspiration for this book. It was called Lost Horizon. And many of you will recall that story in that book. It talked about the Valley of Shangri-La, where people could live to be over 200. Eastern Pakistan, the Hunzas are legendary for living healthily to be over 120. And then during the 1970s, Dannon yogurt made the Russian Georgians famous. Some of you remember that ad. Prior to this ad, nobody could spell yogurt in America. And afterwards, of course, everybody wanted it. This was where a 140-year-old guy from Russian Georgia wore all his medals, held up a big saber in one hand and had a cup of Dannon yogurt in the other hand, smiled a lot and waved it around. You're supposed to believe that it was the Dannon yogurt that made him live to be 140. It was a very impressive ad because he had his son standing next to him who was 120, and his grandson who was 100, and his great-grandson who was 80, and so forth. So it was a very believable ad. Then after the breakup of the Soviet Union a few years ago, we began learning about other cultures in that same mountain range, the Caucasus Mountains, the Azerbaijanis, Abkhazians, Turkestanis, and the Russians studied all of these people for some 70 years and literally wrote thousands of scientific papers on their physical exams and their diets and blood tests and hair analysis, trying to figure out what it was that made these people special, because they were different races, different religions, but they had the common denominator of health and longevity.
You know, in America, they make it seem like you're lucky if you hit 85, 90, you know, but all these other regions probably drinking that fresh spring water. They have no type of frequencies hitting their food. It's all natural and organic. I could see it, man. Our dragon's 100% real. Living in New York. Let's see what's going on here.
This is called a Dracorexis. You look in the Children's Museum today, in the Children's Museum, they have a Dracorexis. But they take the wings off, so you think it's just a dinosaur. But you put the wings back on these dinosaurs like the T-Rex, and you have these Dracorexises. These are species of great dragon. Before leaving on our expedition to see the Acadian green dragon in the wild, Conseil and I made a stop to see the country's most famous dragon in captivity, Phineas, Fort Tryon Park Zoo. Fort Tryon Park Zoo. So there's a place called Fort Tryon Park Zoo in Upper Manhattan is home to Phineas, a 140-year-old Acadian green dragon. This is called a Dracorexis. You look in the Children's Museum, talking about dragons. Let's go. 1857, Barnum acquired 4 Acadian green dragon hatchlings, which he placed in his American Museum in New York. When the museum burned down in 1865, 2 of the small dragons were 2 whales burned alive. The remaining dragons were taken on tour with Barnum for over a decade on P.T. Barnum's Grand Traveling Museum in Menagerie. So his freak show, his Grand Traveling Freak Show, they took the other 2 dragons. In 1888, Barnum donated 1 of the dragons to the London Zoo. Is it play? Or will you find evidence of this? We're fact checking, right? Barnum donated 1 of the dragons to the London Zoo, but it quickly got sick in 1889. The last dragon, my naga, the last dragon was donated to the New York Zoo in 1891 upon Barnum's and named Phineas in honor of his benefactor. Talking about dragons. Let's go. 1857, Barnum acquired.
Interesting. I need more information on this dragon. Were these the last little dragon hatchlings that they had?
This is a giant doorway in Kazakhstan. At least that's what I thought when I first looked at it. But if you look at this closely, this looks like someone's hand grabbing or holding on to something. this kind of looks like a petrified dragon hand. Because when I first made this video, people were saying, oh wait, no, that's a dragon. That's a dragon. It looks like it could be a doorway, but look at the webbing of the thumb right there. And then the index finger right here, the middle finger here. This is a hand. Dragons used to be widely accepted and known creatures, not mythical. This is a 1946 dictionary definition of dragon. It says, now rare, a huge serpent, a fabulous animal, generally a monstrous winged scaly serpent. Lizard or saurian, a fierce or very strict person, especially a woman. That's a little crazy. But now rare, which means they used to be all over the place. Small arboreal lizards of the East Indies and Southern Asia. They're literally telling us where they were located. So Alexander the Great, his soldiers encountered a dragon in 330 BC while they were in India, okay? And they came across a hissing dragon in a cave. And it was estimated that the dragon was about 100 feet long. So dragons were all over India. Hold on. Apollonius of Tyana, a Greek philosopher, documented the dragons that he saw when he was traveling through India. Dragons of enormous size and variety infest northern India, concluded Apollonius of Tyana, who traveled through the southern foothills of the Himalayas in the 1st century. The countryside is full of them, and no mountain ridge was without one. Dragons seem to be real. The Bible mentions dragons over 30 times. Check it out, Isaiah 27:1. Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Thou breaketh the heads of the dragons in the waters. All kinds of verses on dragons, but no verses of dinosaurs. Perhaps dinosaurs are dragons. There's also a 3rd century story of this dude named St. George who slayed a dragon. But a lot of those legend stories are rooted in truth. And even the Chinese culture incorporate dragons in their calendar and in their history. Dragons seem to be all over the place. I don't think it's fake. I think dragons are real, and the mainstream doesn't want us to think that for various reasons. Who knows why? Dinosaurs are fake, but it looks like dragons are real. And if that is not a hand, I don't know what is. There's a lot of history around dragons, artwork, and it seems like the mainstream is trying to hide the fact that these mythical creatures are not actually mythical. Same thing with sirens, same thing with giants. When the government tries to say
Satyrs,
something is mythical, that means it's real. What do you guys think? You think I'm tripping? Or do you also think dragons are legit? This is a giant.
I believe in the Bible they also talk about satyrs. My personal theory on dragons, once those radio stations and the 5G, 6G, 4G started popping off, the dragons couldn't handle that frequency, so they migrated like birds. You know, we see birds that migrate from North America to South America, or they'll go from Canada through North America to South America. You know, it's a giant long migration pattern. That's why some people go bird watching. That's something I actually wanted to get into, because you can see a certain species that comes all the way from northern Canada, you know what I'm saying, and you see it in America, and we can tell that, oh, this is trying to migrate south, you know what I'm saying? So those are some cool aspects of bird watching as well. If you guys got some more cool facts on bird watching, throw it down in the comments. I love to hear it. Really quick, I just typed in bird migration patterns, and if we look, I mean, you choose, look at this one. You know, we got a northern wheater. These have to be the Latin names, but the patterns, look at how far the migration patterns go for these birds. You know, keep in mind, if you have a geocentric mind, look at how this Arctic term, like, look how it goes like against Antarctica. You know, are they traveling all along the edge here or what, you know? But the reason I'm showing you this is to think, how far-fetched would it be for dragons to do the same migration patterns? And these things are what? 1,000,000 times the size of birds. So if we take this on a major scale, you know, this is strictly for entertainment purposes, of course. Do your own research on everything. This entire video is just theories, not factual. What we were just looking at was the migration patterns of certain birds and how they, you know, they travel throughout Middle Earth. How far is it to say, how far-fetched would it to be if there were dragons? They could go to new lands. You know what I'm saying? They could just keep traveling, you know, and we got so many towers up, so many frequencies and all that going on. Who's to say that they are migrating to Terra Nova over here? You know, just a thought. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And that's something else to think about, how people speculate. Where did all the Tartarians go? Or was that just a name for a group of people? They could have jumped on those airships and did the exact same thing.
This is a pretty interesting map. 1587 shows dry land outside around maybe Antarctica, and all the worlds are connected everywhere, and there's land up in the Arctic. Not only that, we found Cyclops, griffins, dragons, what else? There's so many other beasts and creatures we found on this one. Like, there you go right there. I don't know if that's a giant or just somebody fighting something. I don't know. It's crazy. But if you want a link to this, hit me up in the comments. I'll send it over to you. You can check this craziness out for yourself. And this right here, look at that. Brasilia Regional. This is not Brazil. This is that high Brazil or the other place, because when you go here, you'll see where Brazil is at. Brazil is way over here. Check it out. That's Brazil. This is wild. Oh, and then check this out. I'm sorry, it's upside down. I could probably flip it. Let me see. There you go. You can see it now. But there was another area here. You have some mermaids. But yeah, that one right there, we showed that last time too. That was pretty crazy.
You got this giant bird carrying a elephant. Looks like a pterodactyl.
Crazy. But yeah, it's pretty wild. It shows land all the way around, dry land. But not only that, it shows everything pretty much connected. And then check out, like, even where you'd have this little area right here where you'd have like Russia and Africa, you go down here, this is Japan. Look how big Japan is. I know I gotta flip it again. That's crazy to me. So I just found it really interesting and just thought it was cool and wanted to share this map with everybody because it was so neat, and there's so many different animals drawn on here that are different. And then all the land going around it, and then like you have some of these little passageways that are showing. It's just so neat. And there are several maps he made like this. This one's a circular one here, and it actually has even some writings inside here as well.
I wonder if we can translate this, if we can screenshot each little, cause all around the map, it has this like star-spangled banner all across the map, and each of them say something in the middle. I wonder if we can screenshot that, put it in ChatGPT and have it translate for us. I'm gonna write that down actually, and we're gonna do that for a live, and we're gonna do that the entire time. Just translate maps, see what it says.
But there's a couple others that he had made. This map, when it's put together, I think it's like 9 foot by 9 foot. It's pretty wild.
Extremely interesting. There are thousands of maps like this that are from the 1500s, 1700s, 1200s, and they all tell a story. How amazing is that? Definitely something we're going to dive in more in the future. Somebody actually translated a section, and it says the island of Taprobana. I kind of like that. Taprobana. Interesting. Which today is called Sumatra. is said to be the largest in the world. Men are much rarer than women, and in the form and customs they resemble animals of various species. Only eagles and crocodiles are found there. There are no female beasts, and the women give birth without joining with males. Females are more numerous than males. What? Caption reads, Chinese government captured a dragon.
真的是条龙啊！把它包围了。3号就位，别再靠近，把袋子收下。打针了，小心，它动了。好大一口气，都起雾了。天哪！真的是条龙啊！把它包围了。3号就位，别再靠近，把袋子收下。打针了，小心，它动了。好大一口气，都起雾了。
You know, I don't speak Chinese, but it sounds like they saying, let it go! We caught you!
打针了，小心，它动了！好大一口气，都起雾了。
That one was definitely generated, but someone commented something extremely interesting. They said a real dragon is only visible to the ones that need it.
Be crystal clear. Every single dinosaur skeleton you see in a museum is they show you are casts and models, not real bones, the original bones, the remains of a certain flying beast that's been documented all throughout history, mentioned by every single ancient culture. Yeah, dragons. The bones from previous resets and catastrophes and whatever other genetic monstrosities the civilization before us created in their eugenics labs are locked away, unavailable for independent research. Shocking, I know.
Didn't call them dinosaur, they called them dragon. The word dinosaur wasn't made up till 1841. It's a brand new word in the dictionary. I got some old dictionaries and looked for the word dinosaur. Even in 1891, the word was not in the dictionary. They called them dragons. Bible mentions dragons 34 times.
Dinosaurs were invented during the 19th century, at the same time that Darwinism was being promoted as the new account of life on Earth. The coincidence was deliberate, because the creation of enormous reptiles from the imagined ages before mankind gave dramatic form to the theory of evolution. Without dinosaurs, the public would have struggled to imagine millions of years filled with anything meaningful.
Some people go as far as to say that they take actual Nephilim bones or giant bones and then they'll mix it with the alleged dinosaur bones.
This man said he knows for a fact there's a whole island of vampires in the middle of the ocean.
There's a vampire sanctuary located on an island in the middle of the ocean.
This man says he is a vampire.
Are older than the so-called elders who live amongst humans. These vampires have been around for so long that they've developed abilities that your everyday vampires
possibly thousands of years.
For instance, these vampires have the ability to fly. Now, they don't fly the way a bird flies. They don't have wings. They don't fly the way a plane flies. There's no jetpack on their back. These vampires have been around for so long that they've developed the ability to levitate their own body by using their mind. They've also developed elongated fangs. These fangs are so long that they are unable to retract their fangs anymore. There's a few reasons why these vampires have decided to live on this sanctuary. One being that they are quite literally tired of the human race. They were walking around in Rome before Caesar was there. They're absolutely tired of humans. They were tired of living in a world where humans were more of a blight than a gift to the planet. Another reason why they might live in this sanctuary is because with their elongated fangs, it became harder to hide the existence of vampires. While younger vampires can walk amongst the humans, these elders could not. This sanctuary is surrounded by tall stone mountains and very large, ancient trees. These trees have vines on them as small as a garden snake and as large as the torso of an elephant. These vines are riddled with thorns as small as ants and as big as a grizzly bear. Inside of these vines is a red substance. Now, this red substance can be consumed by vampires, but it's not a replacement for blood. The real purpose for this red substance within the vines is that when it's burned, it releases a gas. This gas then rises into the air and creates a mist. This mist covers the island, making it undetectable by radars or any other human instruments. You won't know about this island until it's too late. For For centuries,
Apparently some
ships
humans have
and
been
boats,
there.
and more recently planes,
Amelia
go
Earhart.
missing when they travel too close to the sanctuary. Not only does this mist protect the island from radars, but it also prevents radio waves from traveling in or
Very
out.
weird.
This is why those ships, boats, and planes could never send a distress call when they were in trouble.
This man said he knows for a fact there's a whole island.
How interesting is that? They need to make a movie out of that. That would be a great movie or a video game. Trying to infiltrate the island and free the people, you know? And how about the vampires getting tired of humans? They said, man, we tired of seeing y'all Super Bowl. Before that, they had the Rome gladiators. We didn't like that. The boxing, you know, he said, we tired of humans, man.
There are a lot of mysterious creatures still in this generation. Well, dragons, for ones, are not mysterious anyway, but they are creatures that people believed have been in extinction. But this is a dragon that was caught. Real live dragon was caught. You can see the hands, the legs, the wings, and yeah. So this is real. This is a real shit. So what do you think, guys? There are a lot of mysterious creatures still in this.
You know, I think this one, it may be a possibility that this one may be real. Hear me out. It's not generated. Like, I can look at this and tell it's not generated. This, I think I may have seen this before a long time ago, but taking a second look at it and really looking at it versus all the stuff that's generated nowadays, you could even see the feather flapping in the wind on his damn skull. The question is this a Hollywood prop? Not is this generated, but is this real or is it a Hollywood prop? That's the question. Now, a Hollywood prop of this caliber would cost, like, I would say at least $10,000 to $20,000. And is someone willing to pay that type of money to lay this type of prop on the ground? Is my last part. So that's why I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it could be a possibility, guys. It could be a possibility. Somebody got one that washed up. You know, remember how we was talking about migrating earlier? It might have got tired and hit the water, you know? Napoleon's tomb was designed so you were never his equal. You're either bowing your head or looking up at him. Someone in the comments said, this is me looking down. You know, I heard a lot of different things about Napoleon. One of them recently was that he wasn't even real and that he was actually a myth. How crazy would that be? They made the whole story up. And that it was actually Apollo. It was some old school guy that was talking about it. I'll have to find a clip.
It's agreed upon. One of my quotes I often use here, attributed to this man Napoleon. It's one of those sets of lies agreed upon. History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. One of my quotes I often use here, attributed to this man Napoleon, who is one of those sets of lies agreed upon. And no, that's not a Masonic symbol he keeps flashing in all of his pictures. History would tell us that's just indigestion.
Suppose we use the same argument on Napoleon. If you've ever seen the statue of Napoleon in Place Vendôme, Paris, you will notice that the word there of Napoleon is written the Apollio. Now that would mean, making this Greek, that means that he is Apollo itself. So there never really has been a Napoleon. It's all due to the sun cult of Apollo. You think you studied the history of Napoleon? Ridiculous. Who was his mother? Letizia, wasn't it? Who was the mother of Napoleon? Leto. What does Leto mean? In one language and Letizia in the other. Both joy. That's how we got the idea that Napoleon was born of a woman named Letizia from Apollo. You believe that Napoleon had 3 sisters? He did, according to the myth, but where did the myth start? Apollo had 3 sisters. Didn't Apollo have 2 wives? One was the Earth, the other was the Moon. Napoleon had 2. Where's the sun the major part of the day? How long is it in the sky? About 12 hours. How long did Napoleon reign supreme? 12 years. See, sun myth. He never existed. Furthermore, where is the sun strongest? In the north or the south? It's the south, isn't it? Gets weaker in the north, doesn't it? Where was Napoleon defeated? In Russia. See? Napoleon never existed. Sun come. Think.
History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed.
Where was Napoleon?
Who is this? He was in the waters back in 1953, I see.
Ever considered that the symbol we've come to regard as the embodiment of democracy and freedom might actually be a monument to the greatest falsification in human history? We've been lied to our entire lives about the origin of the Statue of Liberty. What if Gustave Eiffel and sculptor Bartholdi didn't create the statue from scratch, but were engaged in something entirely different? Look at the structure of the framework itself. It's not just a support. It's a complex engineering grid that suspiciously resembles technologies we only began to rediscover in the mid-20th century. The principle of a curtain wall, where the outer shell carries no load but hangs on an internal core, became standard for skyscraper construction much later. How did they figure this out back when brick and stone were still the primary building materials for tall buildings? There is a version that explains all these inconsistencies with one terrifying blow of truth. The Statue of Liberty is not a 19th century novelty. It is a refaced, restored object from a much older era. An era when working with metal and gigantic structures was commonplace, not a feat. 19th century engineers did not invent steel where it couldn't have existed. They found it. They discovered a framework that survived a catastrophe that destroyed a past civilization. And their task was not to build, but to disguise. To clad an ancient skeleton with copper sheets, give it the appearance of an ancient goddess, and pass it off as an achievement of modern industry. You might ask, why such an elaborate lie? The answer is simple and cynical. To conceal the very existence of technologies that surpassed steam engines and coal furnaces. To admit that this framework stood here long before the arrival of the first colonists would mean to nullify all official chronology. It would mean admitting that we live on the ruins of a great world that was erased. And the Statue of Liberty is not a symbol of a new light, but a tombstone of the old.
Shout out to my boy Dice God for that clip.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Hello?
What a curious little visitor. I would be nervous. You can see Dad protecting her head like, all right now, watch out. Your touchscreen wasn't made for phones. Created in the 1960s in the U.S. military and university labs for aircraft and radar control.
Not looking good for the next generation, and it's probably not their fault.
I think that you guys don't know what's going on in education right now. That's
A lot of
fine.
us
Like,
don't.
how could you know unless you were working in it? But I think you need to know. So here is exactly what it's like right now working in public education. First of all, the kids have no ability to be bored whatsoever. They live on their phones and they're just fed a constant stream of dopamine from the minute their eyes wake up in the morning until they go to sleep at night. Because they're in a constant state of dopamine withdrawal at school, they behave like addicts. They're super emotional, like the smallest thing sets them off. And when you are standing in front of them, trying to teach, they're vacant. They have no ability to tune in if your communication isn't packaged in short little clips or if it doesn't have like bright flashing lights. It's actually the way harder part for me than just the outward behaviors is just being up at the front, talking to a group of kids who have their eyes open, they're looking at me, but they're not there. They're not there. And they have a level of apathy that I've never seen before in my whole career. Punishments don't work because they don't care about them. They don't care about grades. They don't care about college. It's like you are interacting with them briefly in between hits of the internet, which is their real life. I've seen some TikToks recently where teachers are getting a lot of hate, like for not adapting to the kids or punishing them or whatever. And I just gotta say, like, I can tell you with absolute certainty, it is not the teacher's fault. It might be the parents' fault. It might be our capitalistic society's fault.
Stay weird.
But it is not the teacher's fault.
Not looking good for the next generation. And it's probably not their fault.
I couldn't imagine being a kid in public school nowadays, you know? You can get all the answers on ChatGPT, so it's not like you really have to work. You just put it in your own words. If you thought I wasn't going to have an excellent specimen for you today, think again. Get a load of this. The rating I'm gonna give this specimen, I will give it a 9.4. This is a black calcite with geothite and transparent calcite originating from Hubei province. Incredible. I'm still trying to think of a name, but I give this a 9.3, 9.4, and I would call this the Onyx Matrix. Yeah. It's kind of got like a shark tooth vibe, but they're kind of protruding everywhere, so I couldn't really go with that. So I'm gonna have to go with the Onyx Matrix. What would you call it? And drop your rating in the comments below. That's all we got for today's video. If you made it this far, be sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your way out and drop the code word in the comments. The code word for today is real dragons. Go ahead and drop real dragons in the comments below. When you do that, that shows me you made it to the end. You really rock with your boy, and I just want to say thank you for your support and hanging out with me. I love you guys. Huge shout out to everyone that made it to my gaming channel. I'm starting to post more regular over there, and I just want to say thanks again for that. And yeah, see you later. This is the most mysterious TikToks on the internet today. See you later.